This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
On Friday, October 21st, the Norris Group proudly presents its 9th annual award-winning black tie event, I Survived Real Estate. An incredible lineup of industry experts will join Bruce Norris to discuss perplexing industry trends, head-scratching legislation, and opportunities emerging for real estate professionals. Proceeds for the event benefit Make-A-Wish and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. This event is not possible without the generous help of the following platinum partners: Housing Wire, PropertyRadar, the Apartment Owners Association, the San Diego Creative Real Estate Investors Association, Invest Club for Women, MVT Productions, the San Jose Real Estate Investors Association, Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, Think Realty, and White House Catering. Visit isurvivedrealestate.com for event information and tickets.
Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris, and today our special guest is Sean O'Toole. Sean is founder and CEO of PropertyRadar.com, the only company that tracks every foreclosure in California with daily updates on all foreclosure auctions. Prior to launching Property Radar, Sean successfully purchased and flipped more than 150 residential and commercial foreclosures. Leveraging 15 years in the software industry, Sean used technology as a key competitive advantage to build a successful real estate investment track record. Sean has always thrived in startup environments and as such became a key contributor at Xing Technology, acquired by Real Networks, ISI Global Center, acquired by Global Crossing, and Icarian Inc., acquired by Workstream. Sean, welcome to our show again.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You know, in truth, you really have been a game changer for an industry. When you were in the foreclosure business prior to you showing up with Foreclosure Radar and now Property Radar, it was very tedious, and there were probably less than 10 participants that were capable of following the things in Riverside that were regulars. And you created access and a scale to where it was affordable access. And it really was a game changer.
Oh, thanks.
And that's pretty unusual.
Some people don't appreciate that, at least those 10.
Well, and, you know, that is true. You know, when we talk about trustee sales, you know, you also have to talk about margin if you're in the industry. You know, when you were buying, how different was the margin then than it would be today?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you know, that lack of access to information, right, definitely allowed for larger margins. There's no question.
But, you know, if you extrapolate that out, so you go, okay, well, what that means is somebody that was going to lose a lot of money lost a lot less. And that's, in a way, I guess that's systemically.
On the other side, for the homeowners and the banks, I mean, there's a definitely, they benefited on the other side. Not that it was my goal to benefit the banks.
No, but it was sort of a side thing that did happen. There's a lot more participants, and there's a lot more investors that probably, I don't know, bought and whole hell properties and so forth. So anyway, it's really been a game changer. Not very many people ever get to say that. Foreclosures, gluts, you know, long since gone. It's been going down for now about 7 or 8 years. So Property Radar, you started how many years ago now? 4 or 5?
It's a decade. Property Radar. So we started off in the foreclosure business just a decade ago,
right?
Almost right now, just within a couple of months. And then in 2010, I made the strategic decision to stop. We were expanding to go nationwide with the foreclosure product. And in 2010, I said, no, it's, you know, that market's going to come to an end. And we shifted focus to the larger general real estate market. And we launched that product in 2012. So the first version of it. And really, it kind of had the complete product as I originally envisioned it in 2010, done in 2014. Software development's still hard.
Okay. And now your client base has grown to which categories? Way beyond the trustee sale buyer.
Oh, yeah, way beyond. We always had a larger swath of real estate investors, and now that's even larger. Folks looking at everything from, absentee owner properties, and even though we don't track something like say tax sales or probates, a lot of guys will go down and gather some of those more specialized lists, and then use our product to fill in the holes, right? Who's the owner? How much equity's in the property? What's the title history? All of those kinds of things. So we're really active in that real estate investor space for sure. Over 200 criteria to create lists, and then you can, even if you do your own specialized lists, you can pull those in to add more data and keep track of stuff. And then realtors have been, an important part of our business from the beginning. And then what's really new is, we're expanding out into the broader home services category, and anybody who wants to market to homeowners and reach out to homeowners, because we know a lot about every property and the owners of those properties, and, with 200 plus criteria to figure out which ones you want, even if you're like the local spa dealer. It's a pretty good platform for doing that.
Interesting. Now, is that you have that capacity right now? Because I know we had talked about that quite a while ago.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an important use case for us, and we certainly have more and more folks using us for that kind of local marketing, creating a list, target marketing list of homeowners in their area, and reaching out to those folks, and and specialty lists, like every time somebody new moves to the area. I mean, even if you're a small business, a coffee shop, say, and there's another coffee shop down the street, every time somebody new moves into the neighborhood, it's nice to send them a postcard saying, come in for a free cup of coffee and a Danish before they go visit your competitor.
It's amazing what's possible today. I mean, that's one thing that I've always respected you for, is that, you brought this computer brain to an industry, and you're keeping on working on it. But in car rides, when we go to the Nixon Library event, you've said three things that stood out at the time, because I hadn't heard of any of the concepts, and that's so maybe I was in the dark ages. But we're not talking about last year. We're talking about maybe 5 years ago. How long ago was your son 10 years old?
So he's 14 and a half now.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, probably 5 years ago.
Okay. So 5 years ago, we're in the car going to the Nixon Library, and you tell me something called a 3D printer. You're going to get your son a 3D printer copier. And I go, well, what the heck is that? And then you're talking about self-driving cars, and I made fun of that. And you made an interesting statement. You said, one of the problems for America is that you're going to have to figure out how to have society where half the people don't have to work. And I've sort of started thinking about all these things. When I went home after that ride about the 3D printer, I pulled up on the internet, and there was an example of something. It just blew me away about the functionality of it. There was a baby born with a heart defect, and they were able to do a 3D image of the heart and then print the baby's heart. The doctor held the heart in his hand and figured out exactly what was wrong before the surgery, so they could do a very simple surgery and fix it. That just blew me away.
Yeah. All the impacts of that. And then, the one that we really still haven't seen too much, there's some stuff going on in China more than anywhere else, is the 3D printing of basically concrete, where you're printing, structures. And when that really takes off and starts to happen, it opens up all kinds of new architectural possibilities that aren't constrained by, these straight 8-foot long 2x4 studs. And I think it could be that all of our housing inventory that exists today looks very antique overnight.
Well, that's what's interesting about the speed of some of these things. And I mentioned to you off air, I'm going to some of these shows because I see that when change occurs, like Uber or Airbnb, it dramatically impacts an industry. And on a concept you almost never heard of, 3 years later, it owns it. It owns the category. Yeah. And so to look out in the future and say, okay, well, what is next? And, try to think about landing in the right spot. And one of the things you had mentioned before was the cost of constructing homes. Apparently, maybe it was in the early 1900s, it took a dramatic change downward because of an advancement of some kind of construction. Yeah,
gypsum.
Okay.
And then just the whole tract home thing, really changed the cost of homes. And, if you look at that Robert Schiller chart that tracks home prices from the 1800s to today, there's just really this one time where it turned down that wasn't due to just a credit event. In fact, the economy was quite strong at that period of time, and that was due to these construction advances. And, that's another thing. That could have these new technologies not only could make our existing housing look a little obsolete, but it could dramatically lower the price of housing.
Right.
If I was an affordable housing advocate, which I guess I am, I'd be focused on that versus on who can we, rob for money to build, housing. How do we just make housing more affordable by changing the technology?
Yeah,
it's a better answer to the solution to the problem.
Yeah, once again, though, displacing a lot of industry. And that's what's interesting when you think about, what's next is, okay, we're going to have these advances. There's a Skechers plant that's in Riverside that when it was originally conceived, it was really thought it was going to hire thousands of people. And the building is almost a mile long in
right.
Riverside. And it doesn't hire thousands of people because it's not necessary, apparently, to build a sneaker with people. And that's rather incredible.
When the Tesla plant was announced, my buddy and I hopped in the car and drove out and looked at this whole area out in Nevada. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, not too far from Reno, but far enough that you're like, whoa, this is nowhere. And we drove around and looked at all these, huge 200,000 square foot warehouses. And, I spent some time in the Central Valley, and you'd go by the warehouses down there, the distribution centers and stuff, a decade ago. And 200,000 square foot warehouse would have a couple hundred cars out front. And I'm looking at these 200,000 square foot warehouses for popular online, sellers, and they've got 20 cars out front.
Yeah.
It's a lot of product coming and going, for 20 employees to be managing, and you can tell there's a high level of automation.
Well, one of the things, and this is a conversation again in the back of the limo, you talked about driving next to, pretty soon you'll be driving next to a driverless car. And I said, I can't wait. That'll be exciting. And then you said, they're going to drive better than you. And you explained to me the technology. So I went on the website to Amazon.com and I watched how they pick products off. They pick the shelf and deliver the shelf to the person picking the product.
Yeah.
And in this warehouse, there's hundreds of moving shelves that pass within an inch of each other and never crash. And you told me that was basically the same technology. And my gosh, that's a game changer when that becomes the norm.
Yeah, you think about even our whole concept of car ownership ultimately comes into question, right? So if I can pick up an app and a few minutes later have a car in front of me waiting to take me where I want to go, do I need to own a car anymore? Do I want to own a car anymore?
Yeah, you don't have to have insurance on it either.
Yeah, auto insurance to the degree that the computer does a better job of avoiding crashes and stuff. I have the Distronic thing in my vehicle that automatically adjusts cruise control, but it also brakes if I'm coming into too hot into another vehicle. It's a Jeep, it's not a Tesla or something else. And I had one event where I don't think I would have rear-ended the person, but the car took over, and I definitely didn't.
Wow.
So there's no question, maybe I think I would have had it without the help of the car, but had I not, it certainly saved me an accident already.
That's interesting. You had talked about some books that, talking about what's next. So if you could share that with everybody, I'd be very interested.
Yeah, the other thing we're, talked maybe a little bit about is, kind of virtual reality, augmented reality, and, there's lots of obvious things like, maybe going and touring, open houses without having to leave your house. This is some obvious things like that, but there's a whole bunch of less obvious things. And, a couple of things there. One is to pay attention to not only Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, which are kind of the two popular platforms out there right now, but there's a company in Florida called Magic Leap. Wired magazine had a really good article on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth reading just to start to understand, what this technology might be able to do in the future. And then on the book side, if you're into science fiction at all, Snow Crash, which is a Neil Stephenson book, and Neil Stephenson actually got hired as the chief futurist, I think, by this Magic Leap company down in Florida. Wrote this book, Snow Crash, in 2001. And not only it talks about a world where we come in and out of, we spend a lot of time in a virtual world as well as, we kind of have two lives, right, a real life and a virtual life. But it also had some other interesting, things. It basically says that turns out we can't all live together, and so we end up with burbclaves, which are, basically suburbs as independent nations with their own kind of sets of laws and norms, et cetera. But you can move freely from one to another if, you don't like particular laws and norms of one particular area. Anyway, you just get some very, it's a little bit of a dystopian future, but, I think thinking it's a fun read, and it has some interesting insights. And a lot of people have credited that book with seeing kind of virtual reality and augmented reality, far before it was, kind of foretelling the future. Another one that's more recent is Ready Player One, which they're making a movie of now, an Ernest Cline book written in 2011. And it really contemplates a world where we're jacked in all the time to virtual reality and what that might look like and what happens outside of virtual reality and that kind of thing. Again, a little dystopian, but kind of a fun read, especially if, like me, you're a kid of the 80s. There's all kinds of 80s video, game, music, culture references, so it's kind of fun.
Do you see this, like any combination of the things that we just talked about, do you see any of that really affecting how education is dispensed? So you have $1 trillion of debt in education, and I can't imagine that that's necessary if you could have a great educational experience sitting wherever you are.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question in my mind that education's not keeping up, right? In a world where there's Google and I can go get access content, right? Memorizing the names of states is pretty much not important. I know some people would argue against that, but literally I can pull up a map of all the states in my phone in 10 or 15 seconds. I can ask Siri. It's just like this content memorization thing becomes less and less important. Now, not to say, I'm a big believer that even though maybe history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, and so it's a pretty good, it's pretty important that you have an understanding of, kind of historical events and the world in general. So it doesn't mean that you don't need to understand, some of the larger concepts, but some of the rote memorization stuff, content, I don't think is as important.
Well, one of the things I've noticed,
learning how to learn is, because we're in a world now where what you learned yesterday won't really matter much tomorrow, right? I think the only thing that's changing is the rate of change, right?
Right.
Things are changing faster and faster.
Well, that's a big challenge to become employed. If you're not moving and understanding where you have to get educated, you could be completely educated in something that no longer is necessary. Pretty easy.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of software engineers, on the hiring side, and I talk to some software engineers, and they're just so hot, like they can kind of demand any signing bonus they want, and it's kind of nuts, right? Mm-hmm. And then I talk to other guys who have way more years of experience and a better knowledge of some of algorithms and certain things, but they just haven't kept up. They haven't used the newer frameworks. They haven't, they just haven't, they do what they do, and they can't find work. And so I think that's, the direct correlation there.
I think that's why I'm really interested in kind of getting some of this under my belt. And in some ways, it's okay to be a newbie in a way, because I'm starting out looking at things that are very advanced. I'll probably have no appreciation of the journey it took to get there, but my starting point would be probably a lot higher than it would have been 3 years ago. So that'll be kind of fun.
When I was 10, my parents bought a computer, and I started reading Byte magazine, which was kind of the Bible back then. And like the first time I read that magazine, I read it cover to cover. I was just so fascinated by computers. And I probably understood 10% of what was in that magazine. And every month I read it cover to cover. And, after a couple of years, I probably understood 70%. Right? But you just kind of have to immerse yourself and jump in.
Yeah, and Amazon.com delivers groceries to our house now.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And you go, you know what? I could get used to this. I really could.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that's a game changer. The market next door, or across the way that normally you would go to, you just go, it can show up at my. This morning, I woke up. I was in the Orange County house. I woke up and put some stuff in the car, and on the way back, I took the groceries that had already shown up at 5 a.m. to the house, and it was done for the day. That's a game changer, when you start thinking about that industry, and that's what I find fascinating, and I think it's going to have ramifications on employment, on ability to make money, ability to buy houses, all that stuff. And I'm trying to put some of the pieces of that together in a chapter that contemplates the future in this new report. So I'll probably be able to comprehend 10% of what I'm going to look at, but I think at least I'll have some idea of what's coming. And that'll be fun. Yeah,
no, I think it's the right thing to be focused on right now, and I do think it has. Don't want to take us into politics, but the one thing really disappointing about this election cycle is nobody's really talking about. If anything, we're talking about how to go backwards, not how to go forwards, right?
Yeah.
No matter what your beliefs are about outsourcing manufacturing to other countries, doesn't change the fact that we're just not going to need as many people for manufacturing as these things become more and more automated. And ultimately, I don't think we need, maybe we need 10 or 20% of our population, as we get closer to the end game of automation working. And that just has huge ramifications for everything.
It does.
We're not talking about it.
Well, on the panel in October that you're part of, it'll be fun to talk about some of this stuff. And if you can join me, I'll send you a link on when those conferences are. And you'll probably go to the booth. I've already seen that, but I already own one of those. Sean, we didn't talk much about real estate, but we're out of time, so we'll talk about some real estate when you're on the panel. As always, I've enjoyed talking with you, so thanks for joining us. Again, Sean O'Toole, PropertyRadar.com.
The Norris Group would like to thank its gold sponsors for supporting I Survived Real Estate, Auction.com, Coachella Valley Real Estate Investors Association, Coldwell Banker Town & Country, Elite Auctions, In a Day Development, Inland Valley Association of Realtors, Jennifer Buys Houses, Keller Williams Corona, Keystone CPA, Las Brisas Escrow, LA Green Designs, LA South RIA, New Western, North San Diego Real Estate Investors, Northern California Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Investment Club, Orange County Building Industry Association, Pacific Premier Bank, Pasadena Phoebe, Pilot Limousine, Real Wealth Network, Realty 411 Magazine, Realty Executives Inland Empire, Rick and Leanne Rossiter, Sunoco Corporation, South Orange County Real Estate Club, Spinnaker Loans, U-Direct IRA Services, Weston South Coast Plaza, Wholesale Capital Corporation, Wilson Investment Properties, Inc.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.